just like what is happening in the game. We are interconnected and we don't know who caused me, and also you just stop one. Actually, it can't, you just adjust one, you can't solve the whole problem. So what is happening is emerged from the local interaction of all people. It's not one or two single reasons that cause the problem. So this really challenged my understanding of sustainable. Also, it also challenged my understanding of how change happens, or what is leadership. You can imagine this is the termite mold. It's not built. It's built by millions of termites. They have no leader. They have no blueprint. They just build the mold with their local interaction. So just like the game, actually the dynamic is emerging from our local interaction. Is no things can happen without blueprint and actual leader in a hierarchy sense. But at last, what I want to emphasize is that I'm not criticizing the model or the tools that we use, but actually I want to say that actually the tools and the scientific knowledge is like the fingers pointing to the moon. But actually, many times we focus on the fingers, but actually the fingers is helping us to see the moon. But maybe sometimes we have tendency to pay more attention to the finger, not the moon. So actually, this is what I want to sharing, to pay attention to the relationship and also to what is really happening around us. Thank you so much.
So Jamie was talking about looking for our relationships and to see what is happening around us so we can change the bigger problems. And I'm going to talk about a little about empathy as a way of looking for our relationships, and then with looking for our relationships, how can we change bigger problems of our society. So, before that, just to talk a little bit about me. As I said, I'm from Brazil, and although I don't look like, I'm from a Japanese family, so it's very nice to be here in Japan. And I'm a biologist, so I went to university to study biology, but I never worked with biology. I worked for many years in a consulting and executive company with projects related to sustainability, ethics, and youth, and also taking care of partnerships with international organizations like the Earth Charter and UNESCO. And then 1 year ago, I decided to quit my job and develop, because I wanted to develop some projects on my own. And also because I wanted to work in various different projects and not only in one organization. In one of the projects I'm developing is the Empathy Revolution. Here is written in Portuguese because I only have this image in Portuguese, sorry. And my studies on empathy began in a course that I did about applied neuroscience and psychology. And then I decided that empathy should be my theme, the study of the theme of my study. And then I discovered the world of empathy and how empathy is related to the way we organize ourselves in the society and related to most of the big problems of our society. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it. But before that, what is empathy? Does anybody want to tell me what do you think empathy is?
I think empathy is kind of whether I like it or I know it or I remember it or something like that. So if I don't know that, I think I don't emphasize it.
Okay, if you don't know something, you cannot exercise your empathy because you don't know. That's it? Yeah? Okay. You wanted to say something?
No. They have the same feeling or same topic with each other.
Yeah, okay, very good. There are actually a lot of definitions of empathy. So different fields of study defines empathy in very different ways. So there one definition in neuroscience, another definition in psychology, very different definitions, but they usually have some things in common. And generally, empathy is defined as our capacity to place ourselves in another's position, see the world through their eyes, and share their feelings. So it's how you can understand someone, put yourself in that place, look the world through the perspective of someone else, and share the feeling in some way, feel what the other person is feeling. And it's you know, I don't know if it's famous here in Japan, but do you know the famous golden rule? Like, do to others what you expect them to do to you? Is this famous here in Japan? Not very much. Okay, it's very famous in the Western world because it's very related to Christian religions and all of this. So, since we are kids, we are taught to do to others what we would like them to do to you, to act in the same way. And empathy has a different rule. So empathy tells us, don't do to others as you expect them to do to you, because they may have different tastes. So empathy is related to understand that the other person is different from you, and to understand their interesting, their feelings, their tastes, and how can you connect with it, with the other person, and do for them the best you can do for them and not for you. So this is like the definition of empathy. How can we understand empathy? But when I studied about it, especially in the neuroscience course I did, I discovered a lot of very interesting things about empathy. And one of them is that the science proves that we are empathic beings by nature. So we are born empathic beings. We have structures, process, and connections in our brain that exists only for us to connect with each other and express empathy. So this is very interesting because this shows for us that empathy is already part of us. You know, everybody can express empathy as a natural thing. And the other very interesting find of neuroscience in the field of empathy is that we can exercise our empathy. So, and it's possible because one of the most amazing features of our brain, and we say in neuroscience that our brain is plastic. It means that it adapts and reshapes to any kind of stimulus that we give to our brain. So that's why we can learn a different language, that's why we can learn to play a new musical instrument, or we can develop any kind of skill that we want, because everything that we exercise our brain responds to it. So if we exercise our empathy, it's going to be more and more natural for us each day. So it's very interesting that science shows us that empathy is part of us and we can exercise it. But why? Why should we exercise our empathy? And we are here to talk about sustainability and social change. So my question is, what empathy and sustainability has in common, and how empathy can inspire social change? So I want to show you one picture of the problems of the world, one map of the problems of the world. So here we have a lot of problems that we are facing in the world today. So I don't know if it's too little for you to see, but now we have problems like wars, like poverty, inequalities, climate change, disrespect, a lot of problems of our world. These problems, they are not isolated. They are all, as Jiamin was talking about, the problems, they are all interconnected. They are all related one with each other, like this. Oh, it's very, very light, but there are a lot of lines connecting these problems. And when we look to a map like this, we can look from two different perspectives. From a positive perspective, from a negative perspective, we can get stuck, like paralyzed with this map, because there are a lot of problems in the world, there are a lot of things to be solved, and how can I solve all of these things? But if we look from the positive perspective, we can see that these problems, they are not isolated, they are interconnected, and they have some root causes that are common to all the problems. What do I mean? I mean that all these problems have some reasons to exist that are common to all of them. And I really, really believe that lack of empathy is one of them. So lack of empathy is contributing for our wars, for the poverty in the world, for the prejudice, and for a lot of problems we have. So lack of empathy is in the basis of all of these problems. So if it's true, then we can change our mind and think that empathy can also help us to solve all these problems. So if we build a more empathic society, and if we turn ourselves in more empathic leaders, then we can help to solve all these problems we face today, and then we can help to build a more sustainable and ethical world for everyone. Do you agree with this? Can you? Yeah? And I wanted to share with you a different concept that is usually not used to this kind of situation. And you probably know more about it than me. And it's the concept of acupuncture points. Do you know? How can I say this? Okay? Acupuncture points? Okay, so in the Chinese and Japanese medicine, acupuncture points are those points on our body that are connected to a lot of different systems and that concentrates a lot of energy flow. And when you do acupuncture, when you activate one spot of your body, you're not just solving one problem, but you're alleviating the whole system. And when you have a complex system like this, you can find acupuncture points. If you act on this, you can solve the whole system. And I really, really believe that empathy is one of these acupuncture points, very, very important in our society. If we exercise our empathy and create a more empathic society, we can solve a lot of these problems. And I want just to quickly share 3 examples of how leaders that decide to act on empathy are creating social change in the world. So, teto in Portuguese means ceiling, like the roof of a house. And teto is one Latin American NGO that builds houses in slums for very, very poor families. So what they do, they take youth, usually from higher economic levels, to build houses for very poor families in the slums. And you have to be in the community. You have to spend a couple of days in the community, in contact with people, and building this house together with the community. And I was volunteer of TETO for a couple of years, and I can tell this is a very strong empathy experience. And when you do something like this, when you are in touch with very different realities, this creates in you a lot of changes that last forever. So it's not about building a house for a family, but it's also about training you as a better leader and exercising your empathic leadership. Because after an experience like this, you're never going to look to poverty into inequalities in the same way. So I imagine if all our leaders from organizations and from government could live experiences of empathy like this, they would probably have different decisions and act on different ways. So this is just one example of how empathy can be exercised in the future leaders. So a second example is that UN, the United Nations, they have a filmmaker, this guy, Gabo Arora, and he creates films on virtual reality. Do you know? Using the glass, and you feel like you are in another place. So he creates films from very different places of the world. So this film, this movie, Clouds Over Sidra, it's about one girl living in a Syrian refugee camp. So when you watch it, you really feel like you were there. There is another movie about one treatment center in Africa for Ebola.